Well, despite the more than 3 trillion naira invested into the power sector between 1999 to date, power firms have continued to perform below expectation, with operators citing huge debt burden, lack of funding, poor energy mix, fuel supply issues, flawed regulatory framework, among other issues. And some of the problems are facing their operations at some of this just outlined.
Yeah, the poor performance of the sector and constant complaints from Nigerians have put operators in a war of words. Now, they continue to trade the blame over who is responsible for the country's poor electricity supply and services, ignoring the fact that no arm of the entire value chain, generation, transmission and distribution can function optimally without the other.
Indeed.
Now, these are some of the issues we'll be talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have joining us a public affairs commentator, Shina Loramikon, in the studio with us right now. Good morning.
Good morning, all.
It's nice to have you join us.
Thank you.
Well, from the days of NEPA, where the cliche NEPA, you know, when you mention the word NEPA, hey, NEPA, don't bring that, you know, and so on.
I'm battling the urge of not saying the recoined meaning of NEPA.
Yeah, please don't say it. And then to the days of PHCN, when it was changing, a lot of people said that, well, going into private hands would make it perform better, would make it more effective, and so on. But Nigerians have made comparison between the days of NEPA and PHCN, and it seemed they were happier even in the days of NEPA than now.
Thank you very much. I think you have just only caught the snake. You have not killed it. Before NEPA, there used to be ECN.
Oh, yeah,
and
exactly.
I think in the days of ECN, consumers also had it far better than the days of NEPA. I can recall that in those days, if you want to know whether there is a cut in public supply, you can know through your refrigerator. We constantly put on the refrigerator then. But these days, in the days of NEPA and PHD, if you put on a refrigerator on, you may suffer severe damage because of the current they will supply. So the burden we know today is the type that gradually you visit your electronics mechanic to repair either your DVD, your television set, your air conditioner, your refrigerator due to power supply.
All right, now, that problem you just highlighted really will be experienced by those that even get power supply in the first place. But what about the larger population of the country that doesn't get power supply? And then TCN, generation companies, okay, there are generation companies first off, TCN in between, then distribution companies saying it is not my problem. I generate power. TCN tells me not to generate more power. TCN says distribution companies do not want to get power from me. It's the problem. And discos are saying no, it's the TCN that is the issue with the problem, the chain. Now, if there is a breakdown in the supply chain of power, this is what you'll be experiencing, and that is what Nigerians are experiencing at the moment. But who do you blame? Because nobody, none of the institutions now wants to get the blame.
Sincerely, I don't want to say that even if we all is to be blamed, there is also a proportion you can give to each person on their own blame. In the last 9 months, in the campaign against impunity, we've gone to a particular community in Lagos, particularly Ikorodu. We've been there in the last 9 months, observing all the issues. You find out that sometimes even the population that have access to public utility, they have not done what is right to be done. Many residents don't officially introduce themselves to the people that will supply them electricity. They do what we call illegal connection or tapping. And there is no way you tap that your neighbor will not know. If your neighbor does not share that sensitive information with the regulatory authorities, there will be crisis. At the same time, they are also expected, those supplying the electricity also have field officers. Many years ago, there used to be some persons called, there are some personnel of electricity body who read meters. and they get allowance for those meters. Those are motivation. That system has been cut off. Nobody read meters now. And the dilemma we now find ourselves now is that in some community, like the one we took in Ikorodu, they have a common transformer. There is this impression that there is a meter on the transformer. It's what they read on the transformer that distributes to the whole household. Some of these households are people living in what I call self-contained apartments. Some of them live in 2 or 3 bedroom flats. Some of them live in duplex. In fact, some of them have commercial use purpose or mixed purpose.
Wow.
You have a person living in a residence, the wife is running a hairdressing salon, or the husband is doing welding work, so it's a mixed use. At the end of the day, the distribution company share the amount read monthly with all the household equally. So you have an equal proportion. And you find people who are rebellious, saying that why should I be paying same with a man living in a duplex or 3 bedroom when I'm in a self-contained apartment. Interestingly, you also find out that we are saying who is to be blamed. At the end of the day, you find out that in June, 7,000 is given to all the residents. In September, the amount goes up to 11,000. Then people call themselves together. They have CDA. And then ask, what happened? They will say, you did not put off your electricity at daytime, and the meter was reading. Then sometimes they will say, you bought new equipment.
But would you blame the customers, really? Would you blame people for this? Because prepaid meters are now being used. So why are distribution companies not giving all the customers in the country prepaid meters? So the problem gets out of their hand.
You know, I said everybody is to be blamed, but I don't even know the proportion. You are not talking of the consumers. It may interest you that the community we chose, 95% have never seen prepaid meter before.
Is that their fault?
95% have not seen prepaid meter. It's not their fault. As I know, the minister have said, go and pick your prepaid meter. No prepaid meter, don't pay bills. Interestingly, those who supply you electricity come back to disconnect. They do mass disconnection. If there is no evidence that you have paid, they disconnect you. Whether you have prepaid meter or you don't have prepaid meter. Along the line, there is explanation that the prepaid meter, pay or not to pay, does not apply to all customers, to industrialists. Those who prepaid meter attract close to ₦1 million are the one that have been told, if you don't have prepaid meter, don't pay bills. For the smaller consumers who use it directly at home, interestingly, just last month in another community, through networking, prepaid meter was made available after the consumer departed with the sum of 50,000 naira. And we are told prepaid meter is free. It's like a recent campaign we have now. The police authorities in Lagos have told us bail is free.
Even in Nigeria, it's not just Lagos.
So they have told us bail is free. I hope you don't have an encounter with the police. You will know that whereas bail is free, it's at the discretion of the police.
That should be a prayer. That should even be a prayer.
And then the discretion can be bring any amount. I will not even be surprised if the police laugh at you and say, if you want your liberty, go and bring recharge card. I will not be surprised. So the same thing with electricity. And you see, we need to go back to our past. Fela have sang all these things. He said we are just parabolating. We are moving nowhere. If you look the power sector, I just chip in the police. Go to the waste management, same thing. We don't even know the policy as of now. We are told we should not pay the PSP for now. And that maybe, no, not maybe, we shall be paying annually. When? We don't know. How much? We don't know.
But that will be a discussion for another day, so we don't lose focus.
in the process. See, it's interesting. In my last count, we have been practicing democracy for 18 years. We are gradually becoming an adult. A child of 7, 9 years has limited access to banking transactions. A child of 18 has more responsibility. I hope we'll be more responsible. All policies, you need to bring the people in. It's not enough for us to go and vote periodically. It's not enough for us to recall our legislators. It's for us to be involved in the process of policy making. We have to hone it. Nigerians have to hone the process. If you want to increase the price of tariff, you need to bring Nigerians in. They need to know why the price is going up. If you want to reduce the price, the same thing. If you want to privatize, bring us in. I want you, we said there is a lot to say. Many years ago, Nigeria Airways was doing excellently, flying almost every hour, going to everywhere that matters in the world. We brought in privatization. One beautiful dynamic airline came in. They call it Okada Air. They were flying almost every 30 minutes. I want to ask, where's Okada Air today? Vanish. That is the drawback of privatization. What is our commonwealth don't need to be sold to any individual.
I say drawback of privatization in Nigeria, because there are many countries that have engaged in public-private sector partnership and are thriving well.
Britons will tell you the damage Margaret Thatcher did to them on their health sector.
Is the government supposed to fund every project?
Yeah, that is the responsibility of government. Government needs to fund. Government is an octopus. They should put their hands everywhere. My life does not depend on me alone. I cannot terminate my life.
But it seems obvious right now that with the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria, the government has become really practically incapable of being everywhere in our lives. In Lagos, you just mentioned the sample you took around, or your survey around Ikorodu right now. Here in Lagos, or even in parts of the country, everybody builds his house by himself. You construct your roads, you get your generator, you put your water supply, your boreholes,
electricity.
You ensure there's generator for yourself. The security is provided by yourself. Your school, your children go to private schools, and so on. And so, in the whole of an average person's life, government has nothing to do or do for you. So, is it not a reflection of the fact that government really doesn't have to be everywhere?
No. I'm familiar with your arguments, but with all due respect, what you have cited, a good case study of Nigeria is what is called a failed state. All these attributes you have highlighted correctly are the attributes of a failed state. A country like Indonesia will not tell you the story you have just narrated. A country like Cuba will not tell you the story you have told. Until Gaddafi was consumed
in Libya,
by the West. Libyans will not tell you that housing is their challenge. They will not tell you that because they are in the desert, they can't drink clean, safe water. In Tunisia, there is no power interruption. In Morocco, there is no power interruption. Our twin brother that we went through colonialism together is Ghana. Power is more regular in Ghana. You can move at any time of the day in Ghana. You don't need to provide all those things you provide yourself in Nigeria and Ghana. If you throw away waste, everybody look at you. That, why are you doing this in Ghana? Nobody needs to tell you. In Saudi Arabia, you don't carry cylinder to fill your gas. The gas run into your kitchen.
Well, you're just like making a conscious statement on the reality in Nigeria. Let's bring in Foladile at this time to tell us what people are talking about electricity supply in the country.
I know lots of Nigerians
are angry.
Are not happy. They're not smiling like they say sometimes.
No, when you talk power, you already know Nigerians are really winning. Good morning to our guests. All right, so let's find out how Nigerians are reacting. Solomon says the strike won't make any difference because even when not on strike, there has always been power outage, and this is talking about the electricity workers on strike.
Exactly.
Power Up Nigeria says it remains a blight that Ikeja Electric has refused to respond to 67 days power outage at Bassi Street, Egbeda. They're even being called out. Wow. Abiola, it beats my imagination rather that Ikeja Electric still operate like the old NEPA, and you talked about that earlier, I know. Consumers are really tired of them. NEC NG, please SOS. Olufumlola says, first ASU, then NASU, then doctors, now oil and electricity workers. Nigeria must be purchasing some sort of buy one, get one free strike promo. Francis Wright says, doctors on strike, universities going on strike, electricity supply poor, which way Nigeria? And finally here from Dash, she says, there are three certainties in Nigeria: Jollof at the party, electricity problem, and ASU strike.
Wow. So Nigeria is very creative.
How effective do you think strikes still are in Nigeria?
You see, it's a dilemma for me. I am a trade unionist to the core. The issues facing us warrant us to have strike in all sectors. Driving down here, I was telling my family how private school emerged and took over everywhere. It's because the policy says school commence at the age of 6. For reason best known to many parents, they drag their wards to school before the age of 3. By the time you climatize, you don't feel, let me just continue at that line. Then you finish the primary school, you finish the nursery school, you commence with the private primary school, and everywhere there is private school, everywhere. Services is far away from standard, and you pay through your nose. Today, public schools admit lesser school-going children compared to private primary and secondary school, and many of them are not government approved. So it's really a dilemma for us. And that's why I say those are the attributes of a failed state. A friend of mine said he went to America for the first time and came back and said, Amakoshia iluwanio aye yidao ilutawanio da, meaning that this world is beautiful, but where we found ourselves, which is Nigeria, is a sorry state. That you think the next thing.
And then you wonder, because Nigerian leaders travel every time. They go to these countries, they see how the systems there work. But coming back home to replicate such is quite difficult. And then you hear the common phrase that it is corruption. And then corruption is an institution. And when you fight corruption, it fights back. So what is the problem really that has entrenched the decay to this level in the country? Is it truly corruption alone, or attitudes of the people?
And you find that those who were once in power as well find it easy to give advice. But when they were in power, they didn't do much.
Oh, yeah.
The reality of it is that corruption is universal. There is nowhere a human being is living that there is no corruption. But the problem is that we are not patriotic. We are not patriotic. And if you are not patriotic, whatever you see anywhere does not give you any urge to replace it where you find yourself. Let us look at Brazil. Brazil has almost everything Nigeria has, but they are doing very fine. Volkswagen and Macapolo, Nigeria Defense Academy, they all took off in those two countries simultaneously. But today, Brazil has gone beyond us. We are stagnant. I don't need to tell you the story of Malaysia, Singapore. You all know it. But the reality of it is that we are sleeping. Others are awake. All
right. I guess we have to leave it here right now. Shina Oloremikon, thank you very much. There's so much to talk about. Just so much to talk about. But time will not permit us, but we know there will be time again for us to discuss these issues. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Fola.
Thank you, Fola. Right. Thank you, and you too.